Welcome everyone to another episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive. Now, I read every single comment that's posted on my channel, for better or for worse sometimes, but I have been getting a fair number of questions about certain cars, certain projects on the channel, people asking, hey, like, when are you gonna do a garage update or whatever? So I thought I would just kind of do one this week and give you guys a whole rundown of all the projects that I have going on, where they're at, what the plans are for them. So just to be fully transparent with you guys. And then also, like, I'm really curious to get your opinions on, like, for this money, like say you had 60 grand to spend on cars, like how would you do it? Would you just buy like one really nice car, like 991, 911? Or would you buy like two cars, like I have my GT350 and maybe a beater? Or would you be like me and just like be all over the place with variety? I'd really like to hear what you guys would do, you know, or what you guys do, how you spend your money with cars. I clearly like variety, as you'll see. So let's just dive straight into it. I'm gonna start with the Mitsubishi Evo 9. So happy that I own this car now. Always wanted one. I had an Evo 8 before, and honestly, it was a pile of shit. Like, the person that owned it before me didn't take care of it. But this car is pretty well, has been pretty well taken care of. It does have like 129,000 miles on it, so it's got a lot of miles, but once again, it's been well kept. It's from Arizona, so there's no rust, and that's really the big thing I wanted with an Evo. Now, this one is rust-free, being that it's from Arizona, so I'm not really gonna be driving it too much, if at all, in the winter, now that there's salt on the road outside. So this is probably mostly just gonna sit in the garage, but that doesn't mean that you're not gonna see it. So one of the things I'm definitely going to do is take it to my friend who is like a full-time detailer and have this thing paint corrected, because it has 129,000 miles on it, and as you can see, there are some paint imperfections. It's not horrible by any means, but it could definitely benefit from like a legit like paint correction and polish. I don't have the patience or skill to do that. Like, I will probably make it worse, so I will pay someone to do that. Even though you guys know I'd like to do like as much of my own work as possible. That's just like a specialty thing to me. Outside of that, this thing doesn't like to idle cold, so that's going to be another thing that I'm going to be fixing. Basically, when you start it up, the idle just like hunts around for a while until it warms up. So I'm assuming that's the tune. It's also running, I think, 1300 FIC 1300s, which FIC injectors aren't the best. Really, I want to put ID injectors on it, because ID injectors are way better. And then I'm gonna get it retuned, so hopefully it will like run a hell of a lot better. But you'll see all that on the channel when I do it, and I'm really curious kind of what kind of power it's gonna make on Turning Concepts dyno when I have Corbin Johnson tune it, who you guys have seen on the channel before. Moving on to the BMW M3, E92 M3 to be more specific. This car, I love this car. I had a older E90 M3, once again, sort of like my Evo, that wasn't as good a shape, and second time around I've done it right. But this thing is definitely gonna get driven in the winter. So like the Evo, these are made of terrible metal and will rust and fall apart. The BMWs are a little more resilient to, or a lot of German cars are a little more resilient to rust and stuff like that. So I'm definitely going to be driving this throughout the winter. The next thing I'm really going to be doing with this, though, is I want to make a little more power with it, and I actually want to make it louder. So it has a Borla Attack exhaust, which I'll show you guys right now, which gives it a little bit more noise, but it's still not loud enough. And these engines sound incredible uncorked. So like, it has a small displacement V8, 4-liter V8, and it revs to over 8,000 RPM. Like, I want to hear that thing. And even despite having this catback exhaust, it's still not loud enough. So what I think I'm going to do is do a primary cat delete. It's a fairly common mod on these, and you can gain like 20, 25 horsepower just doing a cat delete. That's kind of how restrictive those things are. It has two sets of cats. There's the cats, the primary cats, and then the secondary cats, of course. And with that and a tune, I should be able to gain like maybe 25, maybe 30 horsepower if I'm lucky. But that'll go pretty well, like in this car. You know, gaining horsepower in a naturally aspirated car is a lot harder than on a turbo car like my 335. Like my 335, I just put a tune and gain a whole bunch of power. But make this thing a little louder, make it a little faster. Those are probably my next steps with this thing. So you'll see this thing on the dyno. You'll see me putting a new exhaust on it, and I'll keep you guys all in the loop on that. I'm pretty excited about it, but I'm going to be driving the M3 a lot more than the Evo, at least in the winter. This is basically just going to sit here. Now, moving on to a car that you guys have seen lately. I just recently did the sort of corrosion and rust prevention on the bottom of this thing, and of course, because I plan to drive it throughout the winter, and you're going to be seeing it on an episode here in a couple of weeks, because I'm going to be taking this thing off-road finally and in Kentucky, the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway, and getting these tires that I friggin' put on here all muddy. I put these on here is like a month or two ago, and I still haven't taken it off road, which is kind of sad. But you're gonna see that very soon. I wanna see how these tires perform. I wanna see how the car performs now that it's had a little bit of a tire lift, because these tires are way bigger than the stock ones. So I'm gonna be doing that. You guys will see what this thing is like in action in some muddy Kentucky trails. And then what I plan to do is continue just a very light overland build, or maybe light off-road build. I don't know how much pure overlanding I'll be doing. I might use the van more for that kind of stuff. But I definitely want to do sliders. I think sliders is probably the next most logical move, a way for me to prevent the sort of side and underside of the car from getting all messed up, and allowing me to kind of like take it on a little more tougher trails without worrying about that kind of stuff. I eventually am going to put a front bumper, rear bumper, and a winch on this thing, you know, because that's what you do. And as you could tell, like, this bumper has seen better days, so I won't feel bad at all putting a steel bumper on this thing. I want to keep the weight down though. That's like, a lot of people just throw so much crap on these things and then they become super heavy. I want to keep it as lightweight as possible. Like, I've seen aluminum bumpers that people make for them, which is really cool, but also very expensive. So we'll see where that goes. But for sure, sliders, maybe a mild lift, and we'll just, you know, have fun with this thing, do some wheeling in it. You're going to see it in a couple weeks here, like I said. Moving on to the cars that do not, unfortunately, get the garage treatment, my FRS and the van. Now, the FRS is basically, by definition, my daily driver now. I pretty much drive this thing to and from work most days. Occasionally, if it's nicer weather, I'll drive one of these. But this thing is just like the best daily driver for someone like me who doesn't have kids, doesn't need a back seat, or isn't hauling more people around or anything like that. Like, it's just so fun. You know, people that say that they don't have enough power, you can't have fun with them, have either never driven them or don't know what the hell they're talking about, because you can still have such a good time in this thing with only 200 horsepower. And the only bummer part about it is that it has this weird torque dip in the middle of the RPM range, which is a huge bummer. But that gets me to with what my plans are for it. My plans are to kind of try and fix that. I'm not going to go too crazy with this thing because it is my daily and I want to keep it relatively reliable. But I'm going to be doing some track days in the spring and stuff with this thing just to have fun. And I want to make a little more power and mostly just get rid of that torque dip. So what I'm going to do is put a header on it, because a header can gain you quite a bit of horsepower on these things, and then also get it tuned for flex fuel, meaning I could run E85 or any combination of E85 and 93. So, you know, when you do that on these cars, you gain a decent amount of horsepower with a header and E85. So that will make the car plenty quick enough to have fun, even though it already is plenty quick to have fun. And it will be perfect for what I continue to use it for, daily driving and just kind of hooning around and having fun. This thing, I feel kind of bad for it because it sits out here under this tree as bird shit on it, and it never gets washed or anything like that, but it doesn't complain. I just change the oil on it and it just keeps driving. So people say that, oh, you got to look out for like the valve spring recall and stuff. I'm going to push that back as far as possible because I've heard so many horror stories of techs like doing a poor job reassembling the engine after they fix the valve springs and then the engine just grenading. So I probably won't ever have that recall done unless the valve springs actually break, and then I don't know what I'll do. But I'm going to chance it. Anyway, I love that car. Would recommend it to anyone as a daily driver or a fun car. Now, of course, we move on to none other than the van, or the rad van, as it's sometimes called. This thing, I'm currently looking for a place to store it for the winter. Ideally, I could find a garage where I could store one of these cars, like my Evo, and the van there, so I can have all my cars in the garage. The car that's parked here is my wife's car, and I can't justify taking up all the parking spots, and her not getting any in the winter. So, would love to be able to get everything in a garage, just because this thing, obviously, like, it's from 1979. I want to keep it in as decent shape as possible, especially with all the seals and stuff. Just being outside in the winter, man, like, I'd really rather have it covered up, not getting hit by sun, snow, rain, like whatever. So if you're in the Cincinnati area and you know a place that I can park this, the biggest problem I'm having is I would just park it in my garage, but the problem is the height. It needs like a 10-foot garage to be able to fit in there. But anyway, this thing I'm not going to do too much to. I'm just going to enjoy. I'm going to take it to some like tailgating events and stuff like that. But the only thing I'm going to do is I plan to paint it. Not in a legitimate way, because to paint this legitimately would cost literally like 10 grand or more. I'm just going to have like somebody who does like professional plasti dip, or what's it called? Not Flex Seal. There's another one. There's another brand. But I want someone to paint this back to as close to what it looked like from the factory as possible. And I'll show you a picture of that right now. But basically it's like all beige with like some stripes running down the side. It's very simple, but I think it'll make the van look less creepy, and it'll match the interior, man. Like, the interior is so like power 70s. It really needs an exterior that says the same thing, not this like weird like flat black paint scheme. But that's basically it. That's basically everything that's going on in the channel, and that's what you're gonna see here in the next few months, weeks, whenever, as far as projects and what I'm going to be changing on all these cars. Now, this is the part where I want you guys to comment below. Once again, like, say you had 60 grand to spend on cars, like, how would you do it? How would you break it out? Do you agree with any of my choices here? I've obviously tried to switch it up with a bunch of variety. Like, I have a Japanese 4-door all-wheel drive turbo, like, iconic Japanese car, and then I have a rear-wheel drive coupe, like German V8. Like, they're very, very different cars, so you get a very different experience from them, and that's what I enjoy from them. And then, of course, you have the Land Cruiser, which is for off-roading and hauling stuff around. So it's a bit of a utilitarian vehicle. I use it as a truck a lot for house projects. And then you have the FRS as like the sort of daily fun car, occasional track car type thing. And then the van for just partying, basically. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have I done okay with my fleet? How would you guys spend your dollar, and how do you guys spend your dollar? I'm fortunate with the amount of space that I have here to work with. And I know not everyone has this amount of space, and if I had a lot less space, like a 2-car garage, I would probably be down to just 2 cars as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you think some of these mods are a good idea or not, hit me up if you have experience with that. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching as usual. Eat, Sleep, Drive TV on Instagram if you want to follow me in between episodes. I post little tidbits and sneak peeks and stuff. So otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. See ya.